Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Council. This is the March 20th Town Council meeting. It's 7 p.m. We're a little after. This is being recorded by WCAT, either live or further telecast. Let's all rise. Mr. Moncorey, please lead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Ingman. Here. Counsel Calla. Present. Counsel Christopher.
Here.
Counsel Terry.
Yes.
Counsel Servo.
Here.
Counsel McDuffie.
Here.
Counsel Conti.
Present.
Vice President Boncory.
Here.
President Vecchio.
Present.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the March 6th, 2018 Town Council meeting. Motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, the first item of business is the recognition of an individual that's sitting in the front row over here. Mr. David Hubbard, who is the town historian and a good friend. David, like some of the newbies in town, was the last town moderator under the old form of government, the old town meeting form of government. And we do have a history together, because David and I ran on the same ballot when I ran for selectman, and you ran for moderator, and we both won that election. So that goes to show you how far back we go. But David has done a tremendous job through the years, reminding folks in Winthrop by way of a column in the Sun Transcript about the history of this community. And I see Mr. Gillis is here, and along with one of your other partners in crime that helps you. With
Steve Moran.
Steve Moran. They do a great job of really reminding folks about, our heritage here in Winthrop. It's really a unique situation, and it's very, very important that we remember our past. So we thought it would be nice to recognize David. So David, if you'd come up, I'd like to present a citation from the Town Council. And should I go around in front? How should I do this? Let me read the citation first. The Town of Winthrop Town Council citation, be it known to all, that the Winthrop Town Council hereby offers its congratulations to G. David Hubbard in recognition of being known as the town's official Winthrop historian. On behalf of the residents of the town of Winthrop, we thank you for your services to your community, if not only for your historian, but your past involvement throughout our government in the town of Winthrop. Given this 20th day of March 2018 at Winthrop, Massachusetts, Ron Vecchio Town Council President, members Philip Boncory, Michael McDuffie, James Lettieri, Nick LaConte, Linda Calla, Peter Christopher, and Heather Engman, and Michael Lucerto. I almost forgot you. You're waiting. So David, congratulations.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for this very kind award that you've given me. And as you know, we came here from Ohio some 60 years ago. And my bride and I came here. We just got married and we came here. And we've been here ever since. And there was something about Winthrop that the history just jumps out at you. And we've both been heavily involved in history. She's the curator for the Winthrop Improvement Historical Association. And as you know what I do, I write and I do all kinds of things like that. But thank you again very much. I appreciate it. And I will frame it.
Thank you, David.
Down and get you too.
Congratulations.
A man's like said. We get another meeting.
You're too kind.
We're gonna leave, we have another meeting to go to.
I tried that one too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is his game, not mine.
Clarification there, let him know.
She making jokes.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a shorter public comment period. Which leads me to public comment. Yes.
I have to go with them, so I'm going to be very pushy. My name's Mary Mahoney, I'm from the Point, Precinct 3, and Nick LeConte is our new town council rep, and is holding something at the PSA, which we are very interested in. I spoke to him briefly before the meeting, so he suggested I speak up now, which I will. We have serious problems on the Point in that, dating back to somewhere in the late 80s, this town chose to block off the drainage system from whence the catch basins catch the water. Which means that on the bay side, for instance, which is my side, I live on Shirley Street, 800 block, when people on the other side legitimately, for their own sake and their homes, start pumping, goes down the catch basins under our houses. Because as the MWA can tell you, around 89 or so, you might know, Mr. Vecchia, when they put in the new sewage and that, they invited Winthrop if they wanted to do something about their storm drain system. And little did I know, I've lived there since '73. I did not realize at the time when a person who did the video recording told me we had Swiss cheese until the '91 storm hit. And suddenly, from having an always dry house, I was inundated. And then realized that the two pipes that had gone, one across from basically Quigley's old house, if you know that, down that lobster landing, and spewed out into the bay. It was high, it was this big around. My kids and I used to play around it and under it. And another one farther down, not far, Phil, from where you are. Those two were cemented shut so that water couldn't get to if it wanted to. And the one by you, Mr. Boncory, I have definitely sent pictures to the council 5 years ago because the infrastructure is in the bay with all these sharp pieces of metal and 2x4s that you see at low tide, which is when I sent pictures of it. But in the summer, when kids are swimming there, forget it, because you don't know it's there. It's basically behind, you know exactly where it is. I don't know the name of that funny little, I'm sorry, that little street.
Areas.
Yes. So we're looking at, never ever do we want this town not to have its wonderful center revitalized and its schools and all that. But I know people paying, we have the choice because we've had our house so long, we don't have to have flood insurance, we have a minimal. I know new homeowners who are paying $4,000 and up, and they are in the situation I'm in. It's not my home. It's the fact that this town has chosen to let all the water from wherever go down the storm drains to our house, and the next door, and the next door. Now, I do realize that the storm, whatever, the first one of this series, did come over some people's walls on the bay. That is not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to water that literally this town owes us for our $7,000 taxes, not to be ignoring the fact that we have no infrastructure. So, I know a lot of people want to speak, oh, and the rats have been a problem, which I think a lot of towns has, but we've had, when you dig up anything, you have to be aware of the fact that the rats are going to come out and they're going to head for the homes. And finally, the health department did a little for us at the end of the summer, but not much. And, you know, I mean, that's not a little, I'm talking rats like kids playing and rats running in and out of your barbecue grills. I'm not talking an occasional rat. So those are the two big issues on the Point, and I know a lot of people want to speak to you about them, but the infrastructure thing, I think, is something that needs looked into, because when you're talking umpteen million for this or that, and we're paying this kind of money individually for flood insurance that we shouldn't be paying, it's not fair. Okay? I'll see you at the meeting. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have to go to start the sign.
Yes, John.
Good night.
For the hour 55, just two fast questions, whether will the TSAC be meeting tomorrow morning on the field of 8 o'clock?
I believe, John, if you check the calendar, I don't think it's been canceled,
I
so.
just want to make sure.
To the best of my knowledge, but I'll check with the fire chief since I no longer attend those meetings.
I know, but that doesn't get you off the hook, just so you know.
They said yes.
Good try, okay, thank you. And also a fact question, for the agenda, for the agendas for the April 3rd public forum, the advertisements in the press seem to indicate that there would only be two agenda items that would be allowed. One would be the CBD and also the middle school. But will the forum will be open to other issues as well?
We're going to try to limit it, okay? We had a discussion informally with one or two councilors earlier about possibly bringing the ferry discussion into it as well. But we want to limit it because we want to limit the amount of time. We're going to be very strict with how long people can speak. We want to give everybody an opportunity to voice their opinion. It's not going to be this type of blame game or anything, what's happened and how come we didn't do this. It's a clean slate. We're going to ask people their opinions on certain items in town. And those are the three major items that we wanted to focus on. So that's the plan right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, John. Anyone else? Yes,
Yes, you mentioned the time,
7 o'clock.
excuse me, for each person to speak, it was 5 minutes at this council for, is there a limit on time?
For you? We're going to limit it.
How many minutes?
I would probably think, because if there's a lot of people there, probably 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay? And we'll keep strict, it's going to be strict too. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Scott McElroy, Precinct 6. I just had a question, I don't know if I'm reading it wrong or not, but the 4.9 million that you guys are talking about tonight that we're getting from Mass Water there, is that why in the paper it said our water bills might be going up? Is that because of that loan? For
Well,
the
we
infrastructure?
haven't, nothing has gone forward yet.
Okay. So that.
Some of the funding would come out of the water,
Okay.
out of the water.
And then would that also later on be asking for another 5 million from the public for the possibility of?
We haven't even got there yet. We haven't even discussed or broke down the budget or the financing. It was a discussion.
Okay.
Someone brought up the possibility of a debt exclusion. It
Yeah.
certainly didn't come from this table yet. And that's been in the, people have been talking about it, but it's never been part of a discussion that we've had here.
Okay.
So these are the things that you talk about when we look with possible funding for a project. It
Okay.
could be a debt exclusion, it could be raising money through the water, your water bill. But nothing has been etched in stone,
All right.
okay?
Thank you.
But if you just go to the website too,
Yeah.
those reports are on the website.
Okay.
What do you want to be clear
Yeah, I
about?
read some of them. I think I just misunderstood it as well.
That's all.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, Chris Aiello, Precinct 3. Just want to talk briefly about the Revere Street project and the TIP funding that we may or may not receive. First, Pete, that's a great jacket. Bold choice. So, first off, congratulations to the towns who make it to where we are with the possible TIP funding. I think it was great work by the town manager's office to get us there. As I think most of you know, it's roughly $140,000 that's needed for the engineering study, which is, I think, roughly 5% of the total project cost. If we're awarded the TIP funding, Winthrop would have to pay 10%, or roughly $350,000 on a $3.5 million project. Now, I know I've heard some grumbling in town, around the town, that this isn't free money and this is a lot of money right now to be spending on engineering. But if we do go forward with this, it's a 10-to-1 return on investment. So it's a smart investment. The underlying project as well isn't an extravagance. It's a road that I think most of us in town realize needs some work. So it's not something that can just simply be ignored. So it's not 10% of some extravagant project or a bigger ferry. It's 10% of something that's necessary for the town. So we really have three options, it seems. One would be to do nothing, just let nature take its course with the town or the road. Option two would be to not go after the TIP funding and to pay for it ourselves. Or option three would be to invest now for savings down the road. I would like to note that it's great that the town manager, the new town manager, enrolled in this. It's been a period of years where Winthrop didn't apply for money, so we actually get, in this particular instance, we've been receiving we haven't been receiving state DOT money where other towns have, simply because we haven't been asking for it in this particular avenue. And I want to, ask the town manager's office and the town council to continue to look at this avenue of funding. There's other projects in town that are going to be necessary in coming years that this could potentially be used for, such as a state route 145 Pleasant Street in Washington, which is in pretty rough shape right now. There's potential for us to pay, pennies on the dollar. So it's not free money, but it's smart investment that if we start doing now, hopefully we'll be in a better financial situation in years to come. Also, on a side note, just want the council and the town manager's office, I know Joe's been involved, but dockless bike share is coming. MAPC selected the 2 vendors. They want to roll out the dockless bike share in the summer. They're looking at June or July. It's kind of like the OFO bikes that were here last summer, but it's going to be 2 different companies, and it's going to be a lot of bikes. Winthrop and 15 other communities surrounding Boston are all going to use the same 2 vendors. Now, what we have to look at is town ordinances about who's responsible for the bikes. Can town employees move the bikes if they're becoming a nuisance? Where can bikes be parked? Do we want to create special parking areas in certain high traffic areas of town? For instance, create a corral, like 1 parking spot in the center where that's reserved for the bikes. Doesn't have to be a prime spot, but a spot somewhere. Say this is where we'd like to leave the bikes, because Winthrop sidewalks in many areas are narrow. If people start just leaving them all over the sidewalks, it could be a safety issue. So it's something that needs to be addressed. There's also a template contract between us and the vendor that MAPC will provide to the town. I think it's great that we have attorneys in the town manager's office and on the council as attorneys and aspiring attorney, because I think that the wording of those contracts is going to be needs to be nuanced for Winthrop and our narrow streets and our narrow sidewalks. And very importantly, Revere expressed interest at the last MAPC meeting in rolling out early. So if Revere rolls out early, and they're looking at March or April, probably April now because of the storms, if they roll out in April, they're coming to Winthrop. I mean, we saw the OFO bikes come, and there's going to be 2 companies with even more bikes. So it's something that's coming soon, and I think we need to, it can be a great asset for the town if it's managed properly. If we don't manage it properly, it might become a bit of a nuisance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Yes.
Jim Murray, Precinct 6. Just like to make a suggestion with the upcoming meeting we're having on the 3rd discussing a lot of big projects. If we could, from the town manager, maybe get a slide that shows the debt that the town currently owes and how much that equals onto our property tax bill, so that with other projects coming down the road, people can look at something and see, okay, we have X amount of debt already, it leads to X amount of payments on the property taxes, where we're going. And with that also, I make a suggestion that on the property tax bills, we break out what are debt exclusions and overrides into somehow put it on a separate, while your tax bill is the same, let's see what is actually taxes and what is actually debt. I think it would be good for the people to understand where the money's going. Sometimes it's just huge figures are thrown around, and when you get your tax bill, and you don't understand that 25% of your tax bill is because you built 3 new schools, you're upgrading a ferry, you're building a new center, which all may be great, but I think people would be more comfortable if they understood where the money was allocated. That's just something to consider.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jim McCormick from Precinct 1. I'm concerned about the high school with, it's a school zone with no signs. And I talked to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and they said it's not a state law, but a lot of towns put in the blinkers 20 miles an hour, and they told me it would be up to local government, the council, to consider those signs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinn. Anyone else? Okay. Correspondence, we have none. Committee reports. Finance.
Finance Committee met earlier this evening. There are 2 items on the agenda. The first was to transfer $17,000 from Town Council Reserve to department budget for tuition to Essex Agricultural School. The current balance in the Town Council Reserve is roughly a little under $32,000. With this motion, it would go down to a little under $15,000. It is a situation where we thought we had one student enrolled, and we were told we had one student, and throughout the year, they told us we had an additional student. So it's just a bill that's there that we have to pay. There was a unanimous vote for a positive recommendation to approve that. The second item on the agenda was a continued item for the council clerk funding. After much discussion and I think 4 or 5 meetings of discussion, we felt, although there is some language that needs to be refined in terms of the role and the duties of such a position, we felt it was a position that is warranted and deserving of funding. So we voted unanimously to bring that to the council with positive approval to create that position. The discussion also was that we recommend to the town manager that he looks carefully. We know there's going to be a lot of funding needs and requests, and the budget's going to be very tight, but we look, the committee is making a recommendation that we strongly look at the town clerk's budget and take into account any impact it could have on that. We do not feel that they should, the committee as a whole felt that it should not be completely taken, source of funding should not be completely taken from the town clerk's budget. So we do come forward with a positive recommendation for the position.
Thank you. Town Manager's report.
Good evening. I'll try to be as quickly as possible. Just on the dockless bike shares, we're closing in on the announcements with MAPC. Those have to be coordinated through MAPC with each community, and also we just want to be able to make sure that any dockless bike share that we enter into connects it into the Orient Heights T station. Boston has already chosen their dockless bike shares and already have the company, which I don't believe either of these companies actually tie into, but the MBTA hasn't. We're hopeful to coordinate with them on the dockless bike share there. I think it makes a lot of sense that we have the exchange from the train station back into Winthrop. So we will take a look at those, and certainly MAPC has authorized each town through this agreement to make their own rules and regulations as it pertains to those dockless bike shares. The water tower light modification to come into FAA compliance is on the agenda tonight. We'd ask that to be sent to finance. It's below the amount that I think is required to be sent to finance, but we're also trying to go Chief Flanagan to make alternative methods of payment for that, so we just need some time to coordinate that. I think if we let it go to finance, we'll have a report to finance by the next finance meeting on that. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness All-Day Session is Friday, April 6th at the MWRA. The Lieutenant Governor will be here on Friday at 1 p.m. on the Walden Street lot to announce the Complete Streets grant. I think we canceled this one already for snow, so we will text everyone and email everyone if it is canceled. We hope that that's not the case. I had the pleasure tonight opening up the Civilian Police Academy that the Winthrop Police Department sponsors, and their first night was tonight, so I think it's a great program. As Sir Robert Peel said in the early 1800s, the public are the police and the police are the public, and this is one aspect of really allowing the citizens to participate in the policing of their town, and understanding, more importantly, understanding the policing of their town. And last time I think they were here, we had the live shoot trailer, and hopefully this year they'll be able to see that in the scenarios that we go through to train law enforcement officers. We did get a letter of correspondence from the Historic Society of Massachusetts regarding the Center Business District. Woodward and Curran is obligated to file with them. They did comply with that, so Woodward and Curran will be managing that with Steve Calla on that notification. DEP sent us a letter regarding mixing recyclables and non-recyclables in the same truck. I asked Director Calla to speak with Capital Waste. I believe there was one occasion where one truck might have been in town during a snowstorm that there was some mixing. So it doesn't happen often. It obviously did happen on one occasion, and he'll straighten that out with them. The make sure we get the senior tax work-off program. Applications are now being, abatement program, it should say, being accepted at the senior center for that program. Storm, another threat of another northeast storm pending for tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. We do anticipate the collection of snow to start around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. We think the daytime snow will actually be melted upon contact of the cement. So Director Keller will be issuing an order tomorrow for the snow emergency and parking ban at 4 p.m. That'll give people a lot of chances to find a legal spot on their way into town instead of doing it much later at night and having everyone scramble for their spots. And I just asked Joe to, you were going to address one issue, Joe.
Bike share, but...
Are you all set?
Yeah, I mean, just so you know, the bike share issue is that MAPC, we were working with MAPC and 14 other communities to do a regional procurement for bike share services. It wouldn't cost the town anything. The reason we entered into the project was to protect our own interests in this. If Revere in East Boston or Revere in Chelsea or whoever get bike share and those folks come here, we don't have any way to push back on the bike companies. So we wanted to try to make sure that whoever was being used the same across the region, so that we'd all be working with the same vendors, and that we'd all be trying to, there may be some requirement to kind of equalize our local ordinances such that we have to make sure that the bikes are parked in a similar fashion, so that they don't become a nuisance the way the rollout in Revere last year did become. So
the budget process is underway. We're narrowing down some gaps in the budget that from the initial budget requests to what we'll actually be recommending. We did get some better news from GIC today that they weren't going up as much as we anticipated. So that's good news. We'll leave it at that. And the inspectional service team did take another home into receivership after trying to get this house into compliance for the last 4 years. So the court has awarded that receivership to the inspectional service team. The receiver is a contractor that the court approves. So it's not something we pick, it's something the court picks. The person is the court who picks it, not us. That would conclude my report. If you have to answer any questions.
Terry, I have one fast question. The situation with the field, Miller Field, and turning over to the school department, can you just kind of give us a timeline of what's going on?
It's a, certainly, we're in a position where we still have to build a field house and bathrooms.
Right.
That we haven't built yet. In order to build that, that has to retain, we have to retain ownership rights until that is completed and built. My perspective, I don't run fields. I'm not good at running fields. The field has always been run by the school, through the superintendent's office, through the high school, and the athletic director. We are trying to work out an agreement where that will happen. That will happen for spring sports. But, you know, I think last week she emailed me and asked me, can we use the field for practice on this date? I said, well, it still has snow on it. So whenever the snow melts, I think the intent is to use it for spring sports. On the school side, I think it's my intent to enter into an agreement, much like we did for Thanksgiving Day game, to allow the school to operate the field. And let them run it and operate it. I think we have to have a soft opening on this field and in this track, much like we did with the ferry. We didn't just go full blown in the ferry. We ran it for 60 days, and then we went and increased the schedule. And I think the school and the superintendent needs that flexibility to do that. And to bring it on slowly to make sure that they understand the maintenance of the field, make sure they understand the limitations it's going to be, and make sure they understand who wants to rent it or lease it, and absolutely check and make sure those organizations that are renting or leasing it have all the documentation, such as the coaches are being quarried. Now that if we're renting it or we're allowing use of it, we're responsible to ensure that the kids and the coaches are properly checked and vetted out by those organizations. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do.
I know the superintendent, because it was part of my school report when we finished. they put guidelines together for the operation of the field, very similar to what we did for the auditorium. Because of the complexity of the auditorium and all the electronics and so forth, we wanted to protect our interests. So it's pretty sophisticated. When you want to, check it out, you've got to pay for a certain rental. It depends on what you do there. You have to bring in additional people that are hired by the school department. So the school department has got a maintenance program that has gone to their buildings and grounds for review. Once that's approved and it's adopted, all we're really waiting for is the town to say, okay, you can use the field. And I would assume that's when they implement that process. So I guess the question from what you're saying is that the town is going to remain in possession of the field.
As owners.
As owners. And you're going to let them
Operate.
So they'll be in charge of operating it for whatever function. They're going to have responsibility to make sure that all those guidelines are adhered to.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then eventually, I think to be up to the council, once those facilities are built and all the budget is closed out for the debt exclusion, I would assume the intent of the council would be then to turn the whole thing back over to the schools.
I would assume so.
I'm not trying to speak for the council, but that's my only interest, is to make sure the full project is completed, that all the obligations of the contractors are met, and then turn it back over to the school department.
So when do you think that you'll have an agreement to let the school department use it? Do they have to show you?
I have a draft. I came in over the last few days at night, and I got a draft to Lisa Howard. Waiting to meet with Lisa hopefully tomorrow or Friday by the latest to work through that draft agreement and to make sure. I did get some comments from at least one counselor asking that it be open to the public at some point during the day for people to walk on the track or exercise and stuff like that. So I'll make sure that the superintendent understands that.
Any other questions, Mr. Council?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just, we have another storm coming in. What is the anticipation of any more potential coastal flooding? Do we have an idea as to tides?
The tide of concern astronomically is 10.7. Put that in perspective, the storm of last week was 8.2. So it is a couple of feet, but prior to high tide, the wind is going to be in the north, and at the time of high tide, the wind may almost be in the northwest, which flattens the ocean down. So I think we're in good shape for this storm.
I hope so. Secondly,
The manager doesn't let me say no, but we know flooding, I have to do it.
I understand.
Never guarantee anything. Mother Nature is very unpredictable.
But this is something we can predict. I see in your report, in your meetings, that you met with the Conservation Committee, and the Conservation Committee has filed a report that they are allowing some residents to put sand back that came over the wall back onto the beach. And if that's correct, that's something new. I think that's great. Now, is the town going to be taking all the piles of sand that it took off the road and piled into these massive 20-foot high piles and put that back onto the beach, or to take it somewhere else?
That would not be able to go back on the beach. Once it's on gravel, it is then considered contaminated. That'd have to be hauled out. Director Caller is getting me a price on actually hauling some of that stuff out.
And see if we can sell it. I mean, because there
It's
are
very
people
hard
that
to
buy
sell.
sand.
Contaminated sand is very hard to sell, Phil.
It's not really a...
Not a market for it.
Do you know that? Well, a lot of it that's on Brewster Ave, what used to be Brewster Ave, it's not contaminated because there haven't been cars on that Brewster Ave for 20 years since the sand filled it up above its original level. So, I mean, that's in...
It would depend on the street and the condition of the sand. And certainly, I think Director Caller, if I misrepresented anything, please let me know. But there's our streets that sand is on, that we have to get down there and try to do something with it. We understand that. Is when can we get down there is the next question. How much does it cost to remove it?
how much can be made with it? I think that's a better question.
Council President, I had just one question going back to the senior abatement program.
Yes.
The test. I've had a few inquiries, and some of the seniors wanted to know if there's been any discussion on increasing that amount, or is it going to stay at the $750? They said the state has increased it, so they didn't know.
I would have to ask the assessor
Okay.
that specific question, but I think it will also need a vote of the council.
Right.
So I'll talk to Steve Roach and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions? This one is, yes, Peter's going to. Oh, Peter, I'm sorry.
I've read in the paper the past couple of weeks that there's a handful of communities that are joining together in a class action lawsuit to to combat some of the increases in public safety calls that have happened due to the opioid crisis. I know that Danvers is currently having talks with their attorney. Have we thought in any way about trying to get involved with that?
We did sign on to that class action litigation. The states and the federal government were considering it, and the class action didn't want to wait for them to take action, so we're taking action through K&P Law at no cost to the town for participating in that litigation. And it is to offset the expenditures of peer coaches and law enforcement response and fire response as a result of the careless pharmaceutical companies in the opiate crisis.
I just wanted to ask a question. I was flipping through, sorry, just catching up on all the notes here from your report. But I see that we have a ferry start date for the season of April 16th. And I know we have our community forum coming up at our next meeting. So I'm just wondering whether or not we're already getting ready to launch when we haven't really had that discussion in full.
I think at a couple meetings I brought this up, and I think I said at the council meetings that unless I have received direction otherwise, I will continue to plan for the season. And I didn't receive any direction otherwise, so I have continued to plan. The commitments, DEP and MassDOT are having conference calls with us, and that stuff can't be put together in a turnaround time, so we have to continue to plan. And if we decide not to, then we have an obligation to notify those agencies that we are not going to run a ferry this year. But I think the DEP money is looking more positive each day, and MassDOT has a conference call next week on the request of the $161,000 that would actually cost the ferry. I think in the budget process, you'll see some increased numbers in the ferry as well for all the administrative costs that it actually has to take on if it's a true enterprise fund.
Right. So I think it was the new budget that was proposed. I've just seen some of the drafts that there was nothing actually coming from the general fund. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So because I think that would be the goal. Most people would say they'd be happy with it if it wasn't coming out of our pockets, if it was coming out of.
Just in fairness, that's always our goal. We haven't achieved that goal yet, but we're striving to that. If the 150 and the 161 come in, I think it might be achievable this year.
That's exactly what we're aiming for. So.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, again, since we're having the discussion next time that we meet, if the public changes, or if that changes our mind, when is that when we actually will be in contract for all the stuff when we're looking at the 16th? That seems like really close. Like we'd already have to have things in place. Like right now it says we're in draft negotiations, we're doing interviews.
DEP money is based on last year's services, so the 150 is a reimbursement from last year, so there's no contractual obligations with that. Mass DOT, we have not signed any contracts with, entered into any agreements, and those are always contingent upon service agreements. If there's no service, then we wouldn't get the money.
I will say, I'm sorry, Terry, I just want to add that Terry's right, it's a reimbursement on the DEP side, but it is their expectation that they want to see us run it again this year. That's part of the reason they're giving us a thumbs up. They're having an interdepartmental water transportation meeting this week and trying to get that by next week.
We hope for that.
But their expectation is that they're rushing this reimbursement because they want to see us start service, and that was exactly what I was told on the phone today, so.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that, like,
But
again.
we'd be under no contractual obligation because it's for past services already.
Right, I just mean for like the hiring or any contracts with where we're gonna dock or something like that, that if we go to this public forum at the next time, and then our launch date is actually before the next.
Our launching got a lot better this year, because we don't pay for launching, to the encouragement of the speaker, that we're gonna be landing an aquarium, so there is no, wouldn't be any monetary obligation there. The other launches are, I think the Rose Wharf was a 3-year contract that we're trying to get out of. I haven't checked the status of that, if we were able to successfully get out of that one yet. And I believe in the Seaport District fan pier area, they don't charge us the Chapter 91 money. So, I mean, as far as, you would always hire provisional employees, they're provisional employees, they're not full-time employees, they're part-time employees, they can be let go at a moment's notice, or we may not even take them on, but we have to advertise and be ready.
Yeah. Is that correct, though, that if we have the forum where we discuss this with the public, our next meeting does that fall actually after our launch date? So we never actually have a chance to action anything if people say, we don't want this, or whatever.
Well, I think you could always call an emergency meeting if the council president deems it necessary, but the other thing is do we just push off our opening and that's more difficult for us, because then it throws us really behind where we are and where we want to be. So I would think that we just, let's see on the 3rd. We'll continue to prepare and be ready to go, but the council always has the authority to say, this is not going to go.
Yeah. Like I said, the ultimate goal, I think everyone would be totally happy with it if they knew it wasn't coming out of the general funds to fund. So if we think we found something that's going to pay for that in the budget.
Hoping to have those official words on the 3rd.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll push hard.
Just to follow up on that, I guess, is it safe to assume if we do not get a check from MassDOT that we wouldn't have the money to launch? Isn't that entitled? That's what the thought is?
It's been my position, Councilor, that the $75,000 we got last year to run the Quincy run, we were running in a deficit, and that we couldn't do the deficit this year, and that's why we increased it. We spread our costs. And like I'm asking every enterprise account, is to take the insurance costs, to take all your chargeback costs, and run it across all your programs. I've asked Parks and Recs to do the same thing. If that has to increase the program price, that has to increase the program price. What we can't do is keep on going back to the general fund for offsets of these enterprise funds, because it's like it's a failing business. Really, these enterprise funds are supposed to operate sufficiently on their own by charges that they accrue throughout the time. And one bad year is one thing, but multiple bad years is another thing, I think. So I think we looked at that and we said that 162 is the number on that. I think MassDOT's question is what happens to the fares that's going from Quincy to Boston, Boston to Quincy. My turnaround is that you guarantee me the 162, you can have the fares, because I'm covering my costs in maintenance and gas and insurances. So if they want to take that proposition, then we might be a lot closer to a deal. I'd rather have one in the hand than two in the bush, and let them run the risk of having a low passenger turnout, not us run the risk of them having a low passenger turnout.
Just one more follow-up too, I guess. So let's say the boat needs some maintenance, because boats always need that. Is that still going to be on us beyond the 162, or is
we are always on the hook for maintenance. Yeah, over the last, since we own the boat, we run it for maintenance, but we factor in the maintenance projections into that 162 figure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a line item in the boat budget for regular maintenance of the boat, so that will continue. Extraordinary maintenance is something that we have to start to plan for as well. As we've continued to build a business, the goal is to be able to have a money left over at the end of every budget year so that that can build to be able to do extraordinary maintenance when it arises.
Anybody else? Thank you. School department update. It was a very brief meeting. One of the students actually reported, if you recall, on March 14th to set the date as a walkout for the kids at school to kind of remember the victims of the Florida shooting. And the school department came up with a very unique opportunity for the kids to stay in school. And they actually held a ceremony in the gym. And the students were allowed to, everybody was allowed to get up and speak and something to say about the situation, about safety in school and so forth. So it was as you recall, the 14th we had no school, so they did it the following day. And the students came in and they explained what they were going to do, so they did a good job. There was a discussion again on the Miller Field maintenance program. Again, that's gone to buildings and grounds at the school department. And the final thing was the ratification of the superintendent's contract, superintendent of schools. Old business, town council appropriation, that's been tabled, $4,931,500 until after the April 3rd meeting. Transfer $17,000 from the town council reserve, the department budget for the tuition of Essex Agricultural School. That came out of committee as a recommendation. It does not need a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Under old business, I think you clarified the council clerk funding as best as we can for this point on to the end of this year. Under new business, the town council fund $142,100 for the 25% design engineering for the town of Winthrop Reserve, a Revere Street tip project. That's going to be referred
Motion to refer to finance.
Motion to refer to finance.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Town council fund $10,000 for beacon light improvements on the water tower to bring the water tower into compliance. Also going to refer that
Motion to finance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town council adopts a new council rule that requires all finance motions to be accompanied by supporting documentation as described in the attached document titled Expenditures and Transfers Memo.
Motion to refer to rules and ordinance.
There's a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Heather, would you like to make a discussion because you
Sure,
kind of brought this
just
up?
briefly to introduce the idea,
Yeah.
and then discuss more of the details in the subcommittee. But my thinking and what I would like to see moving forward is either a town council rule or a policy that describes the documentation and information that supports the finance motions, an expenditure or transfer that happens mid-year outside of the regular fiscal budget, so that we have some documentation of the cost-benefit analysis, different funding sources, grant opportunities, stakeholder interests in different projects, and that we have that all put together in one place. I think there are a couple of benefits to that. I think it improves the transparency and accessibility of a lot of the decisions that we're making. A lot of the discussion on the finance memos happens in the town council's finance subcommittee, where there's often a verbal report from department heads or from the CFO. And I think it's really important that we get that written down and documented so that it's available to the counselors at any time. It's available to the town manager and town hall staff at any time if we're going back and trying to figure out why decisions were made or how decisions were made. And then, importantly, it would also be available to the public, something you could put on the website or something that the public could come in and request if they had questions about how money was being spent and how decisions were being made. So I put together a memo and used some ideas about how we could create this documentation and a policy, and I hope that we can talk more about the details.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to refer to committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The establishment of the Winthrop Shoreline Resilience Committee. That was requested by our precinct down the point. Would you like to discuss this?
Sure. Well, as you know, Precinct 3 was hit particularly hard with some of the recent coastal flooding. And I think this is, we need to take this as an opportunity to start looking proactively at what the town of Winthrop plans to do, both short-term and long-term, for what our potential ways to combat this problem are. So I suggest that it's time to put together a committee of experts, perhaps a few from each of the most impacted neighborhoods down the point, Pico Beach, up by Morton Street, and some experts, particularly someone that has some expertise in writing grants to try to get some state funding or some other sources of funding for it, along with, I don't know if it would be a structural engineer or some kind of expertise that we can finally combat some of the challenges that are going to be facing us ever increasingly over time.
Okay. I entertain a motion to refer to rules.
Motion.
Second.
Quick
All
question,
those- yes.
first, wouldn't that go to committees, not committee? Committee on committees?
Yeah.
Again, most of
I would say
the
both.
committees have been set by the Rules Committee.
Well, I'm sorry, I would think it would go to the Committee on Committees as well. I'm not sure what rules we're establishing here, so much as a committee to move forward to address this issue.
You approve?
Send it to both committees, it's fine.
You want it to both committees?
Yeah, you can go to both committees.
The motion is to go to both committees.
We'll have a joint meeting.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? On that note, Joe, can you kind of just top line a meeting that's coming up that kind of ties into this whole
Yeah.
subject?
Yep, certainly. Terry alluded to it during his town manager's report. On April 6th, we have the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Project's Community Resiliency Building Workshop. So the state last year had established a policy or process for helping communities identify what their vulnerability to various natural threats were, particularly in coastal communities. And the grants were available through the Coastal Zone Management. The town, under our office, applied for and received the grant. We are working with an engineering consultant to help us run the CRB. The CRB is very particular. It's outlined, the whole process is outlined by the state, what it is that they want in the report. And the idea is to build these reports with input from the community, with input from local staff, and from any other experts that we can bring in. So we're targeting a turnout, hopefully, of 60 people or so, for a full day, 8-hour workshop from 8 to 4 p.m. out at the training room at Deer Island. We've started publicizing that, and we started by sending it to people on the mailing list who were inundated with flooding from the January and February storms, January and March storms. And we'll be opening that up to the public. Space is limited, so we are asking people to respond as quickly as they can if they want to participate. As I said, we started with the neighborhoods that were most impacted by those storms, and then we'll open it up and take people from across the town. The goals of the MVP are to help the state assess what all the different municipal vulnerabilities are, help us prioritize them, see where things can be worked on regionally, see where things are more local. And the state is looking to establish new funding streams to be able to help attack some of these issues. But they want to have a kind of complete picture of what the whole scope of work that needs to be done around the state could possibly be, and what the cost of that would be, so they can help prioritize it. We're also, the town has been working on these issues for quite a while. As part of the Metro Mayor's Coalition through MAPC, we've been working on a regional response to climate change, and we have been applying for funding. We did a critical infrastructure vulnerability assessment to coastal flooding last year, so this MVP will build on that. So we've been continuing to work on those issues for at least the 5 years I've been here, and going back before that. So there's still more work that needs to be done. Always happy for more help. We had 20 people at the kickoff meeting for the MVP 3 weeks ago, so we're hoping to make that 60, 65 people on April 6th, and we'll move along.
And then that vulnerability report is on the town website, so if anyone wants to read it before the meeting, they're more than welcome to.
I was going to say, thanks so much for organizing the workshop. I think for those people who stuck through our 4.5-hour marathon town council meeting before, the 8-hour workshop might be a little much for some people, but it's great that we're doing
If you
it.
did the 4.5 hour without any notice, you should be able to do 8 hours with a little training, right? I mean, that's easy.
My only,
Yeah, we are feeding people, they have breakfast and lunch, so.
But my one concern with that is that it's Friday during the day, so there's a lot of people, obviously, with 9-to-5 jobs who can't make it. So I'm just wondering what we can do, if anything, to have something in the evening for those folks who can't make something like that. Because I do think it's really critical for us. I think everybody in the community is talking about it. I'm just trying to get some more access for people to be able to.
So we had a little bit of a challenge with trying to figure out how to do the workshop. The state allows you to do the workshop in one of two ways. You can do one 8 hours, or you can do 2 4 hours, but you have to try to ensure that the same people come to both. You can get more to the second one, but you have to at least make sure the first group comes to both, and that was difficult at best, if not near impossible. So we settled on the one, and again, we looked at doing it on a weekend, doing it on a weekday, the requirement to have so many local officials, local town employees be there when they were already working a long week and they're already working long storms. I mean, a lot of the people that we're talking about having there are also the people that are working through the night when we have the storms and so. Lots of discussion back and forth about how best to schedule that. We understand we won't get everybody. We will open up with the engineers, I'll open up a forum for people to give us their ideas, and we'll try to have a public presentation of what the MVP comes up with before the report's finalized.
We'll look at the requirements and see if it allows us to also record this.
I've already asked if we could try to do that and run it publicly. Mike Brown's trying to organize somebody to be able to set up the camera, run it during the workshop, and then he'd edit it and get it out onto the WCAT.
People could enter their comments through the town manager's office.
Yeah, even if we can do like a short debrief, cliff note version of that for those people who can't make it.
Try and plan it for 2 hours or something like that.
Thanks. Just to follow up on that a little bit, I don't know exactly what type of information the group would be soliciting at the workshop, but if we could get sort of the key questions or the key topics that they want feedback from the community on, and then get that out to the public so folks could provide written comments, because I think it is really a barrier having it during business hours for those of us who work. I had one other comment, but I can't remember that one.
Anyone else? Okay. Point.
Where do you sign up for this?
Contact town manager's office, contact Larissa, or go through the town manager email.
Send them an email, and then
we'll
sign up.
register.
Okay, I have 2 appointments. I'll entertain a motion to take both together. So moved. Okay. Town council accepts the appointment made by the town council president to appoint Marcus J. Cantu to the Board of Appeals as an associate member, or take any action thereto. That the council accepts the appointment made by town council president or executive to appoint Robert DeMarco as a member of the Parks Committee, or take any other action thereto.
I think we have to do them separate.
Pardon me?
Because one is a policy-making decision on the appeals board, and the other one is not, so I think you have to do them separate.
We'll take the appeals board first. Motion, seconded?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Robert DeMarco for the Parks Committee.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That's it. Okay. Before we get to public comment, I believe we want to...
Just wanted to go back to old business on the council clerk. We did discuss it, and did not come out of committee. I would just like to have a formal motion that we can vote on, that for the establishment of a full-time council clerk position.
Okay.
And that motion's coming from the committee, does not need a second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment. Yes, John.
Thank you. Last comments, if I might. I'd like to make a recommendation to the council to consider reopening up town hall, at least on Friday morning, for the course of normal town business. It's been a number of years since the town hall has been open, like 5 days a week. as all of our neighboring communities have been for some time now. Revere, Chelsea, the standard operating procedure is my understanding that the current restriction of keeping town hall open to conduct the public business for the convenience of the public was done some years ago to meet the budget crisis du jour at the time. Okay? Well, that has passed. And to have the town hall open only 4 days a week for the convenience of the public, we talk about normal public activities, initiatives, and so forth. I think it's long that the issue, that the time has come to reopen town hall for at least a half a day on Friday mornings. I'd like to strongly recommend that to the council to take whatever action needs to be taken to put that in place for the convenience of the public. And just a follow-up question on my further comment, on my earlier comment about the TSAC. What is the messaging mechanism for procedures of the TSA to come to the attention of the town council? For example, I've been, emailing the TSAC on some traffic and parking concerns that I've had for some time now with courtesy copies of my memos to the town council. I'm really serious about following up on those issues because, at least in my opinion, they really involve potential safety, shortcomings of the town. That's one of the reasons I'm going to go to the TSAC meeting tomorrow morning, snow or not. But I want to make sure that the proceedings of the TSAC come to the attention of the town council through some appropriate mechanism that I don't know, that I'm not aware of, so that I can do, and other members or other citizens in the town can take advantage of that. TSA, I think, has the potential to be a very important, committee in the town, but it kind of operates in I might say, in a bit of a vacuum. And I wouldn't mind seeing that somewhat clarified. If I have any real definition of what the communication mechanism is between the TSAC and the council per se. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I mean, the TSAC is an advisory committee established with rules and regulations. They answer to the town manager's office. All the correspondence goes to the town manager's office and then to the council. Any official action or recommendation is then finally voted at council as a rule and ordinance change. When, if necessary, some of it's day-to-day operational issues that doesn't come to the council because they can handle it on day-to-day operational staffing, there's a sign that needs to be put up, we just go put it up. That doesn't need an ordinance change. So some of the stuff that's coming from TSAC never gets to the council, but you're usually advised in the memorandums.
Yes.
I just wanted to address the comment that John made. I think initially, because we had discussed this during council, the change in town hall hours in eliminating Fridays was because now the employees were working 2 nights a week for people who couldn't get here during the day, and they work 9 to 5. So to offset that time, they keep town hall open at night for those people who can't get here during the day. And therefore, they kind of offset the hours for that Friday.
Okay.
So.
Any further public comment? Yes.
Excuse me, Lisa Albertini, Precinct 6. I actually want to comment on 3 things quickly. The first was, I saw on the agenda, and I might have missed the discussion about the CBD audit. It was under new business. Did I miss that?
We just missed.
We did.
Yeah. So it's coming up.
We'll go back to it.
Okay, well, I haven't heard it all. Some of what that might be about.
I'm sorry.
I would just on that score strongly suggest, I made this comment at the last meeting, as I think Joelle and a couple of other people did, that we pause around the CBD infrastructure work. I would strongly recommend that the town do an audit, kind of just how we got here. I know there's been some work and some thinking about that already. I can see the path forward and a successful CBD infrastructure project may be to request an extension on the state MassWorks money now. We'll get more money. I don't think that's out of the question. I think in order to do that, we would need to simply do a forensics on kind of, what happened, how did the scope change, what about the estimate, some totally rational, good questions, and put together kind of a case for what we thought then, what we think now, what we know now, around estimates, and put together a case to both request an extension and potentially more money. I wouldn't at all put that beyond the possibility of, taking something like that to the Commonwealth, but we have to be organized in order to do that. So when you do have that discussion on the infrastructure audit, that would be my suggestion. The second thing I would comment on is just I think this was also tabled or given to a committee, and that's allocating the money for the, I think 25% design engineering on Revere Street. I think that can leverage a lot of state funding, and one of the ways we want to get our infrastructure, our streets and sidewalks now I'm talking about, taken care of. There are a lot of state programs out there. I saw at least on TV that Chris Aiello commented earlier that we've gone after money. I forget the name of that program at the moment. That the town had not taken advantage of before. I know a lot of towns that do get a lot of infrastructure money from the Commonwealth. And a small investment on our part can leverage some significant state funds, and that would be a good way in going forward about how we start taking care of our streets and sidewalks, which ought to happen to be all on the town's budget or the town's expense. So I would recommend and urge that when that goes to committee, the town does decide to provide those funds. And the third thing I would quickly comment on is just sort of follow up on the ferry discussion of the last meeting. Unfortunately, I'll be on vacation at the next town council meeting, but that means I won't make that. I will probably try and submit some written comments for that meeting on this. But a couple of things. I was one of the ones who commented last time that I would outsource the ferry, for example. I did learn so much interesting information from, I forget the name of the woman who was here last time for Boston Harbor Cruises. One of which was that Salem is the only ferry system that breaks even or makes money. And I called, and they don't run it themselves. And I know the mayor of Salem quite well, so I called her up and asked what her thoughts were. Would you run this yourself or not? And I learned an hour later, literally an hour later, when we finally hung up the phone, I learned a couple of things. One of which, the most important thing is that this is a really complicated business. She said that they wouldn't run it because it's too complicated. They're a much bigger city, they have other resources, but that it wouldn't make sense. And she actually said she was surprised when she learned that Winthrop was deciding to operate ours on our own. But she had some really interesting ideas, about how maybe our boat, if it's not used, can be used to generate revenue for the town. She said, well, how big is your boat? And they might want to lease it because they have maybe a greater need than their boat has capacity for. There were a couple of other ideas that were interesting. She also talked about a great deal about a lot of both challenges but opportunities that I wasn't aware of in terms of how we use the boat. Also told me some about the fact that I think it's Boston Harbor now is talking about an alliance and a sort of network system where you can use a set of vessels in a particular way with different travel options so that everyone is stronger. These don't work as a one-off kind of deal usually. The point of this is not to try to put anything in particular out there, but the point of that conversation for me was that I learned an enormous amount about how involved this is, and I would really strongly suggest that we give this topic, we charge the town council, charge the transportation committee with learning more about what the options would be long-term. Even if we find money this year, we don't know if we're going to have the money next year. Then we have boat maintenance. I mean, it's clearly a long-term question. It's not, can we get the 100,000 or the whatever we need from, DOT, whomever. It's a much longer-term kind of question. And I think the transportation committee has some very talented people on it. They could take the time to understand what the options are. And I think that there could be many certainly that I wasn't aware of. And if we were to open, I know this is a very tricky timing question about launching this year. Maybe if it launches this year, it's under the condition that this goes, one thought, that it goes to the Transportation Committee with a particular charge, and that by this time next year we have something in place. I'm trying to find a way to both have it continue if that's what the pleasure is, or it may not be. Maybe that we have to take a year's break and figure this out. But in any event, I thought that I learned a lot. There's a lot to be learned out there, and the Transportation Committee seems to be a focus of folks with the skills who would be well suited to be able to delve into this. So I would strongly suggest that we spend some more time and energy on it.
Thank you. I'm going to revert back to new business, and I'll open public comment back out. The discussion of the Center Business District audit, which was requested by one of our councilors.
Yes, so, thank you, Council President. And thank you, Lisa, for just mentioning that for us. I wanted to put on here a discussion of the Center Business District, to potentially look at an audit or a review, as sort of what Lisa articulated as a pause, and sort of opening up to the rest of my colleagues up here as well for a little bit of discussion on how people would feel about some type of rapid third-party review of what we have. I know that we've inherited something. I know that what we've inherited here is being really looked at, and Terry's work and Joe and everybody else has worked pretty diligently about trying to pull together as much information as possible. And I've mentioned a couple of previous meetings about, we haven't really learned much from it. We've inherited this and we're trying to fix it, but we haven't gone through that learning process of, well, how did we get here? Could we use some outside expertise just to look at this project for 30 days to understand maybe where we went wrong, where we went right, what we can ensure in the future by having some type of third-party audit? Whether that be just a single project manager who does a sprint 30 days looking at this with a couple of other people who have experience in these large infrastructure projects from the community. I don't know exactly what it would look like. Some ideas to throw out there is just a project manager from maybe the MWRA to look at this project, since they're also kicking in money. They have a stake in making sure that the project goes well. But just so that we have a sense, I think we know people are trying to do their due diligence, do the best they can, but I think based on how we actually got here and inherited this and the way it was rolled out to the public, I think the public deserve assurance that we're actually now heading in the right direction. And I think the best way to do that is to have some type of third-party audit of how we got here. Did we find everything? The interesting memo that we got about from the Historical Society that there may be an Indian burial ground down the center, right, that they want to look at. Like, who thought that was coming? I didn't. Maybe you did.
Those are, we have to make the filings, and they respond to those filings.
Right, but who I mean, that was something I would never anticipate, right? I don't know how many other people up here would anticipate getting that memo. So I just wanted to pose that to the rest of my colleagues up here of how they feel about potentially going down that route, especially if we're looking to retell the story to our other stakeholders of people who have offered us money, whether that be the state or whatever source it is, so that they're confident that we're going to be able to pull this off. And again, it's no knock on anyone's due diligence. It's simply like we have inherited this situation, and a lot of the same eyes are looking at it, trying to fix it, and I feel like we would benefit greatly to have an independent set of eyes to look at the situation here.
I agree with Councilor Lucerto, and I want to thank the town manager and his team for all of the work that's been done in the last couple of months, because I think because of your work, we're in a position now where we can make some smarter choices about how to move forward. But I think we need to figure out how we got here and sort of why we're in this position where the estimates just aren't, the estimates are not what we've been planning for over the last year and a half, 2 years that we've been talking about the project. And it's critically important that we get this infrastructure work done, but I don't see how we have the money to pay for it right now, and I don't see that we have the organization or the understanding of the project to make that investment right now. And once we get all of that sort of history in order and what needs to happen next, I think we should go back to the state and try to, A, get an extension on the grant money that we already have, and B, try to get more money, but we're not going to be able to make the case for an extension or more money if we don't really have our ducks in a row. So I agree with the need for an audit on what's happened so far.
I don't understand what your suggestion that we hire an outside auditor to come in and we're going to pay him to audit this entire project, and where are we going to get that money from? This is not just another additional expense that is going to go into this project. And
Well, I mean, if we're looking at this as a speed run, again, I suggested the MWRA because they're a great partner of ours. Maybe Fred Lasky can loan us a project manager for the 30 days, again, because their money is going into this project. Or, you know, I think it's worth spending $5,000 to $10,000 to make sure that we're doing this right, and it's not a $16 million project. And that's what I think we really need to know, that piece of information.
I'm not objecting to anything the council wants to do. I think it's just important to underline the department heads. It's not just my efforts or Joe efforts. It's certainly Steve Callis and Woodward and Currens, and that it certainly was peer reviewed. We had the council auditor look at all the finances and where the finances were coming from. And again, I don't object. I just want to make sure the record's clear that it was peer reviewed at the engineering stages, as well as the landscape architect that was brought on board. You know, all those moves did increase the cost of this project, and certainly the council auditor looked at what could be charged where, and told us what accounts should be charged and how and why it should be charged that way. So I just want the record to be clear, and we'll do whatever the council decides.
Now, the town auditor has been working with you since you've been working on this, on the numbers. So hasn't he been auditing the whole project?
He would audit where the money's coming from and what accounts to be charged to. I'm not sure if it's Mr. Lucerto's intention not just to worry about that, but to worry about the cost estimates, which any project you do, you have to have cost estimates. The engineering firm that we contract with will give us those construction estimates. The true cost of the project will never be known until we put an RFP out, a full bid package out through the procurement office. That's when we'll know the real prices. But these construction estimates are generally generated by engineering firms that work for the town or community, whatever, not just the town of Winthrop, but any city or town. So I just want, you know, that's what's been happening.
Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to just clarify a few things, sitting through last meeting, sitting through this one. I'm all in favor of any peer review, any audit you want to do. I just want to clarify the fact that it sounds like, I keep hearing, oh, you know, misestimated. This, you know, the estimates went up and up and up. What actually happened here is the scope increased on numerous occasions. This whole thing, back in 2008, we put on the capital improvement plan, a sewer infrastructure project down in the French Square area. That's the first time that anything in the center, under my leadership, and I was operations manager then, I wasn't even director, we started talking about the center. In 2016, so it was on the capital improvement plan, nothing ever really occurred. We did some small work down on Woodside, which Mr. LeCarry, I'm sure can remember that later. In 2016, developers started coming to the then administration and the then town manager saying that the development was being hindered because infrastructure couldn't support the development. So at that point, the town manager asked us to start engineering a water infrastructure project to couple onto the sewer. That became a project. Then it grew to zoning changes, and that became now we want to look at water, sewer, storm drain, and that became another project. With the zoning, now we wanted full build-out capacity. So now what we charged the engineer to design, and what we were engineering, it wasn't just to improve what was down there, it was now to design something that will accommodate full build-out, the higher buildings, the bigger volume. That became now this bigger project. So as the scope increases, unfortunately, so does cost. Yeah. It's not misestimates that, you know, oh geez, they went up another $1 million. They must have misestimated that. It wasn't that. The scope, it continued to increase. And then there was, let's bring in a landscape architect and more increase the cost. And then that landscape architect has new ideas, and that gets added to the project. So we adopt the master plan, and we want to start talking about, well, let's close this street, let's try to
embrace some of the stuff in the master plan, and let's put that in this project. So this project, it started as a sewer infrastructure project way back in 2008, grew to where we are now. Now, I'm not saying, so what we have to do at this point, in my opinion, is decide as a town, as a council, what do we actually want down there? Then we can truly come up with a cost, but we keep adding things. And it's not, I just want to clarify, it's not misestimates. We had a peer review from Kaufman Environmental. They peer reviewed the infrastructure of a full build-out. They agreed with our design. They agreed with our cost, our estimated cost on that design for full build-out. And then we were enlarging French Square and we were changing traffic patterns. These things happen from a master plan. These things happen from council input. These things happen from community input. So I'm all in favor of figuring out what we want down there, but let's not say that these things were misestimated, because they weren't. The scope was increased, and an estimate came with each increase in scope. So I'm all in favor. Let's all sit down, let's figure out what we want down there, and we can start from square one. It's not a DPW project. Let me clarify that. It's not a Steve Keller project. Steve Keller is being asked to put a cost to all of these recommendations and suggestions. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for that.
You can talk only on public comment, okay? You can make a statement on public, yeah, but he's a town, he's
So I gotta talk
DPW.
on what do you think?
No, he's DPW director,
Okay.
okay? You can speak under public comment,
Oh, during.
yes, okay? Do I have a council with his hand up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Council President. Director Keller, I'm very much interested in what you're saying over there, and that's why I'm sort of supporting the district audit, because I'd like to see the progress from a third party, someone to kind of come in and walk us through exactly what the history has been over time, so we can better understand it in writing as it kind of went from one request to the other. And that way we can have a little bit more credibility when we go to outside stakeholders or grant managers to somehow, let them know we do know what we're doing. This is not sort of us shooting in the dark. Here's the history of how we went from A to B to C, and now we're at D, and we're sticking on D and need the funding for D. So I completely hear what you're saying, and I think that independent audit is exactly the way to get all that information down.
I think I want to thank Director Callow for his comments, because I think the term audit might be misleading.
Right.
And I don't think that what we need to do is second guess the engineering work that's been done or the estimates that have been done. But as Director Callow mentioned, the scope of this project has changed so many times, and the scope hasn't necessarily changed at the same time as the budget estimates have changed. And so I think we really need to figure out why the scope has changed. And does the estimate include everything we need it to include? Because, I don't know that it includes some of the phasing that we might need, or construction planning and management that we need to include. And so I think that's the issue that we need to get to the bottom of, not second guessing the numbers or the engineering work that's already been done.
Let me just make a comment. If we're going to get into a delay in the project, in my opinion, the bigger kettle of fish here is the entire scope of the center, including the middle school.
Yeah.
If we're going to delay this thing, then why don't we look at the whole picture? The infrastructure that's going to be needed, if there's any type of development at the old middle school. Obviously, there's going to have to be infrastructure work done on Pauline Street. Then we'll have to go to a separate thing, so that's going to take us a couple of years down the road. If there's going to be a delay, and if we're going to reassess what we're looking at down the center, I would propose that we put it all together and make it one project. And maybe go to the state, hopefully they can hold on to the money that they gave us, and go back to the state and say, listen, we've revised our estimate, this is exactly what we really need. This is the program we want to go with. So that's just my.
Well, I was going to say that, the point of it, and I think, Councilman, you're on it, I don't mean it to be an audit as a second guessing of anybody's work, right? That's not what is intended, because I know everyone is working hard on it. It's more to get the sense of, from what I understand from the CBD business owners, again, same thing like Director Kelly mentioned, that, every second, third week, we've got some serious sewer backup that's affecting their businesses down there. This has been going on forever, and when that group first came together, again, it was an infrastructure project, it's water sewer, right? And when we pulled together a whole bunch of different stakeholders to apply for that Mass Works grant to begin with, the sense was we all cheered when we thought it was a $4 million project and we got money that was going to get us to the goal. The state gave us the gap at that time, right? And since then, like you said, the scope has exploded, right? We've dabbled into all sorts of other different things and changes in what we're going to do. And, you know, again, I think what the state was trying to do to begin with was, here's your ability, here's the money to get you to your goal. And now our goal is totally different. And that's why I think we need to be able to tell that story to say, if you still want us to reach our goal, this is actually what we need. Or this is, let's talk about the different avenues that we can go down. So again, I really want to stress, it is not second guessing anybody's work that was put in this. It was just that the intention of all this and applying for it was to get us to that goal. And that goal shifted since then. And we need to be able to tell that story to say, look at all the other things that we can do. It's a gravity-based system, right? We can't replace just the pipes around the center like it started at. It has to be all the way up to Pleasant Street. So those are not in the original scope. But
Can
I just speak to that real quick?
Yeah.
There's things that can be done down in that center. It doesn't have to go to Pleasant Street,
Right.
per se, to do a infrastructure project down there. It was the decision from the current town manager and business owners and developers, well, if we're gonna inconvenience and do this project and it's an upgrade, how can we do it just for the businesses and not improve the residents that are abutting? And then it grew up to Pleasant Street, and that scope actually doubled the size of this infrastructure project. You know, the length of pipe doubled in size, water, sewer, drainage, so everything grew. So that was one of those scope changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I want to be clear, we can do stuff just in French Square. We can improve some pipes down there. We don't have to go to Pleasant Street. It's where we want to stop the project, what the community wants to spend their money on, and where they say, okay, draw the line here.
Can I say, but the figure that you have now includes the entire, including Pleasant
It does.
Street,
We went up to
including
Pleasant Street.
anybody.
Exactly, but that was the private town manager saying, let's go to Pleasant Street.
How much money have we already spent on engineering to get that done?
We probably spent, $350,000.
Dollars, and we want to do it and start over and blow that money and have another engineer come in to re-look at that and maybe, would you say 5,000? They're gonna charge us at least 100,000 to go through that project again.
I mean, well, that you're landing on one of my points, and this is like we've inherited the situation from the previous leadership, right? And if we're saying we spent $350,000 on engineering, then Woodward and Curran should have been put out to a public bid, and they weren't. They were just given.
Engineering does not have to go through, that's a joke.
But and then we have our part-time town planner from the same organization. So I'm just trying to say, like, let's peel back any, potential conflict or whatever and say, what are we actually dealing with and what's the story?
I mean, you look like you're looking for some kind of collusion or something.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that I think, I don't think there's no engineers up here, is there? Is there an engineer up here? I mean.
There's an engineer over there.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, we have to vote on that. And do you feel confident? Do we feel confident where we are right now to explain this to the
What
public?
you need to vote on is what do you want the scope of the project to be.
Right.
That's the decision. And then you can design something. We've changed the scope so many times. And with scope change, it's always going to be cost change. That's how it works.
Councilman Chairman. Thank you. Obviously, there's a great deal of interest in, all good points, I think, and I learn something new every time I'm here, depending on this project. But, we're having a public forum in 2 weeks for this purpose. This project the scope of this project has just ballooned incredibly. So I'm going to use my council privilege to put off the discussion of this until after the public forum, because we're having a public forum to get input. And I think out of all this, what Director Keller just said, that, before we do anything. We have to know what we want to do. I don't think we need to get 15 different options and say, okay, this is what's going to... If we think that it's an infrastructure project, then we should focus on an infrastructure project. If we think we should include it with the middle school, we should include it with the middle school. But I think we should first go through the public forum, get the input from the citizens, and then come back, because there's going to be many more discussions, so I'm going to use my council privilege to put this off to the meeting after the council meeting. Okay, public forum.
Yeah. Public comment. Lady in the back.
Diane.
Yeah, this both, yeah.
I'm Diane Sands, Precinct 5. I was actually just going to say what you were saying. I was going to say the first thing I would do is establish my goals. And if it means going backwards, that's okay if we just decide to, do the center district. And regarding, I have another auditor, we have an auditor. We could just use him and not spend additional monies. And then, I don't know if you need to put it up for a vote or not, for the public or the people that show up. I don't know how you handle that. But get a consensus of what the people want and put your goals down. Doing a little bit, doing a lot. I think a lot of people would like a little bit done because it affects their taxes. So, I would say establish your goals first and go from there. That's all. Make it simple. How's that sound?
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think that he's got incredible work done, and I completely agree with the councilors who thank Director Calla for the work that he's done. And I think that Councilor Amy would say, we're not on audit in terms of, looking for some place to put blame or something like that, or collusion, and I think that's, not at all, I think that idea here. I think the Director Calla was right. Over time, this changed, and that's not a bad thing. But what we need to do, and we want to establish the goals, figure out what it is people want to have done. I would argue for doing more rather than less. I would argue for opening the streets once. I would argue for going for more money. I don't think more money means it's coming out of people's pocket or taxes. The next MassWorks application is due September 1st, or somewhere in that range. By the time we go through what we want, we couldn't put this job out to bid and get it started anywhere, or bubble anyway. Right. And so, do we request an extension? Do we go back for a more fulsome request and combine what we've got now with something more? Do it once, do it right, do it in a way that I think would kind of honor the town center. I completely agree with Councilor Boncory. If we're talking about something in the middle school, I know that some of the streets have been included, but have we really looked at the build-up capacity for the middle school site? Have we thought about climate change? Has that all been part of this engineering? Have we thought about the middle school? Is that part of this engineering? Is there that detailed phasing, construction management plan, and phasing schedule? Those are the kinds of questions. It's really more a what are the detailed pieces of this? Not an audit about but what are the detailed pieces of this? What's that history, as Councilor LaConte said, and Councilor Lacerda, on how we got here? We had started with this, and we added that, and we added that, and this is kind of what we want. It is sort of what we need. And we also want to make sure climate change is taken into account, and our construction phasing plan and all of that. And by the way, state that adds up to, X and not Y, and we'd like to request more money for that. And then maybe there's other parts, you go back to NWRA. And I do think that this isn't an audit that, I think it is helpful to have people who also, if the NWRA, that's an interesting idea, that they're a partner in this, where they kind of help us frame how we take this to the state and looking at it. I think that when I say pause, and I think what Councilor Lacerda means by audit is more, that kind of a perspective, so that we can present something to the state that makes sense in that way. And I will say, I did read the peer review. The peer review, was done by an outside engineering firm, which I think is a small firm. I don't think they do a lot. Given what the scope has grown to be, I don't think they do that kind of work necessarily. It was, it said it should need to be reviewed again when the plans got further down the road. There's just some more look that we could, put on all of this and come up with a really, really good argument for the Commonwealth about why they should give us more money, actually.
Thank you.
John?
Thank you. From Campaign Side. Just a brief comment, response to Councilor Call's thoughtful comments to my original suggestion to include Friday morning, okay, as part of the normal town council operate, the town hall operating hours. I totally acknowledge what she said about the advantages of having nighttime hours now, which we did not have before. That is a positive step forward, I agree with that. But in my opinion, that should not be an alternative to opening up town hall on Friday morning as well. We need both from the town. That's standard operating procedure for Jessica, our neighbors, and Revere, Chelsea, and Boston, like that. And that's what I'm strongly suggesting, is to build on the additional evening hours that are now incorporated in town hall opening hours for the public. That's great. But let's go one step further now in opening up town hall, at least on Friday morning, for the benefit of the town. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jim Murray, Precinct 6. Listening to all the conversation tonight, especially I lived on Sunnyside, so Pico's right there, where my grandmother lived and my mother still lives. The climate change. I think it's time that, not that they don't do a lot for us, but through our representatives, the third most powerful man in the state, the senator on the Transportation Committee, we have two behemoths, one at the end of this town and one in the middle of the harbor. We have a front line of defense of the business driver of the entire state, Logan Airport. Every time you turn around and to read the paper, they're at another international airline. I worked over there. They used to have 6 international gates. I think they have 14 now. All they do is print money over there. And we are the barrier. Winthrop disappears, those 25-foot waves are going to bash that airport, and that's going to be gone. Same thing down the end of the street here. They print money too. They do a lot for us. I'm not saying that, but they need to do more. We bear the burden unlike any other community.
Okay.
We do. And what they give us is not a lot when you think about how much money they generate. Read the transcript last week. They're doing $25,000 or $50,000 to the East Boston YMCA. That's great. Where's ours? Our streets are flooding. Our community is being overwhelmed. And they do give us some stuff. $10,000 to fix the FAA beacon on the water tower? Are you kidding me? We gotta pay for that? Really? That's one flight landing over there from Israel, or Turkey, or United Arab Emirates. One A380 super jumbo jet with 500 passengers. We gotta pay for that? So it seems out of whack. Like I said, they do a lot for us. They make it seem like they do a lot for us. But they've got a lot of money. And again, if Winthrop goes under, if the shoreline erodes, the waves come over, the airport's the next stop, and NWRA is an island. So I don't know how they're going to get their tractor trailers down there when they get flown over on a barge. It's really serious. It's time for them to really come up with some serious money to make Winthrop whole. Just like those, I'll call them fake reports, just like the cigarette reports were in the 50s and 60s. Cigarettes are okay for you. Everybody smoke them. And we all found out later it was all a lie. Just like those medical reports they passed out last year saying the jet exhaust doesn't do anything to you. It just ruins the roofs. The asphalt roofs melt. But it's okay to breathe. Okay. Maybe. I don't think so, but okay. But I think the Speaker of the House, member of the Transportation Committee, it's time to really put Massport and the MWRA on notice that they need to step up and really help us the way they should be. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, we have a couple of public announcements.
Oh, I have one. Oh, I do too. Go ahead, you can do yours first.
I'll do mine first. Parks and Rec is doing their annual character breakfast and Easter egg hunt this Saturday, March 24th, 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. Admission $8 in advance, $10 at the door. Tickets are available at Parks and Rec and at the Winthrop Pro Shop, or they can be got online at winthroprec.com. Always a great event. Encourage you to attend. They'll have breakfast, games, music, face painting, egg hunts, and fun with characters. Thank you.
Jim, where is that?
That is at, oh yeah, I know, where is that?
Usually 4 days.
Yeah, it's at the Cummings School, I believe. Just let me.
While he's looking that up, congratulations to the U10 and the U14 young girls hockey team. They didn't win, but they certainly did a tremendous job at the state tournament this past weekend. So congratulations to a job well done. The 24th, which is Saturday, there's two things going on at the school. One is the drama club is in there. I think it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Boston. They're in their final competition for the state finals. And also the band is in a competition at the King Philip Regional High School in Winthrop at 8 o'clock and at 10:30. They're actually in a competition as well. So good luck to the band and good luck to the drama. One second.
Go ahead. Character breakfast, again, Saturday, 24th, 8:30 to 11:30 at Fort Banks, Norman Fort Banks School.
Go ahead, Phil.
Just, the joint committee for rules and ordinance and committee and committees, can that be booked for Tuesday night at 6 o'clock? Next Tuesday night,
Tuesday, for the joint,
joint committee, yeah.
You also have the other motion to the finance documentation. Do them all together or just?
And finally, one final thing. On Thursday, April 12th, those who can, for those in need, will be hosting their 5th annual Uplift Yourself with Laughter event. It will be held at the Giggles Comedy Club starting at 6 o'clock. There will be an all-you-can-eat pizza dessert, a 50-50 raffle. This year, we will be honoring Bob Rapucci from Capic. Incidentally, Bob Rapucci does a lot for Winthrop. In this past storms, he's contributed a lot of money to the town, that folks that were displaced because of their homes getting destroyed or whatever. Bob does a tremendous amount of good work through Capic. He's going to receive the Those Who Can award. The comedy starts with the headliner of Lenny Clark. Tickets are $25 and can be purchased from Judy at 617-462-5719.
And Mr. Tompkins, President?
Yes.
I'd also like to remind everyone about the Precinct 3 meeting that's happening next Monday at the PSA Hall at 7 o'clock. I know that the Town Council President is planning on being there. We hope to have the Town Manager there as well, and as many Precinct 3 residents as possible.
Anyone else?
yes, and we're having a combined neighborhood, precinct meeting, precinct 3 and 6.
Yep.
With our police department on April 2nd at 6:30 at the senior center. And that will be to go over what's been going on in each precinct, crime-wise and so forth.
Any final? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
So moved.